All right. Hi guys, my name's Jack and this is going to be my midterm poster presentation. So we're going to start with chapter 1, which is the science of psychology. And a lot of people focus on Freud in the beginning, but the Gestalt psychologists, as you can see in that picture in the very bottom left, they had a little bit more of a complete, at least it makes more sense to me, their theory on psychology, and it was based on the idea that the sensory experience is a composition of multiple different parts, all like pieced together to form what we experience as like our lives. Um, so also with that, using classical conditioning is something that we learned about that I thought was really interesting. Because I myself have a dog that we trained using some of these methods, like tied to food, like sitting, staying, laying down, paw, all that basic stuff. And then there's other stuff like you get him to stop and then you walk across the street and he's still sitting there because he knows what he's supposed to be doing based off of what we've taught him using these principles. And we all know this using an unconditioned stimulus for the initial unconditioned response, and then moving that into a conditioned stimulus after relating the two so that he knows what's going on. And those were what I found most interesting about the first chapter. Second chapter is all about research and psychological research. And it's how data is collected through the use of scientific method. Um, and it's used to draw conclusions that help us understand our minds and how we experience the world around us. A couple things that I thought were really interesting was the placebo effect. I actually have a little bit of experience with the placebo effect. Um, so I went to the hospital when I was a freshman in high school, and I had a liver abscess, and they had to take out a part of it to see what kind of bacteria it was, so they could know what antibiotics to use to fight it with. And before they knew what it was, so I didn't get any sicker, they just gave me like a general or like a antibiotic that works for most stuff. And then when we found out what it was, it turns out that the antibiotic that they had prescribed me doesn't have an effect on the type of bacteria that I had, except I knew that I was taking an antibiotic and I was feeling better, even though it technically didn't have an effect. I felt better because I knew I was doing something to stop it and I didn't feel as sick. And then ethics. So when we're doing research, sometimes we always have to take into consideration how it affects the participants, and if it's the right way to go about doing it. And if there are objections, then normally that has to stop, even though there are still questions to be answered. And that's just kind of a hurdle that a lot of psychologists kind of have to get over when dealing with that kind of issue and stuff that people haven't done before. You have to really be careful about the way that you do things as to maintain an ethical code. And then moving on to chapter 3, which is biopsychology, which is going to be the anatomy of why we do certain stuff. So it's a study of how our anatomy contributes to our behavior and the systems in the body that create feelings and fears, as well as pleasures, and what can also cause addictions. Like if we didn't have chemicals in our brains that told us it was good, then we can't be addicted to something in the first place, right? So even if those chemicals are hijacked by whatever substance we're doing, if we don't have those chemicals in the first place, then the substance has no effect. Um, so there's two distinct sides of the brain, which I thought was really interesting. And I've heard people say, "Oh, I'm a left brain dominant, right brain dominant, whatever." Um, I can't remember which is which, but one is supposed to be if you're more dominantly this side, you're a more logical thinker, and you go step by step. Um, and the other side of the brain is you're a more creative thinker. You think outside the box. You solve problems in different ways. Stuff kind of like that. And then using an EEG with new technology, we can see what parts of the brain light up during certain activities, including during sleep. And I know for myself this would be really helpful because I have trouble sleeping sometimes, as I know a lot of high school, college students and high schoolers do, people our age. So that would be really helpful for me, and that wasn't even something I knew that was an option until I got into the class. So Next chapter, I know I'm kind of going slow, so I got to speed up a little bit. The awareness of the state of consciousness is chapter 4, and the state of consciousness is an awareness of internal and external stimuli, such as feelings of hunger or pain or detection of light. Circadian rhythm is linked to the sleep cycle, but it's like a 24-hour cycle that just renews every 24 hours, and it's also not dependent, but affected by our external environment. So depending on where you live, what time it is, what the sun's up, if the sun's down, that affects that kind of circadian rhythm as well. But there's also things that can disrupt that, like caffeine. If you drink caffeine too late, you're not going to fall asleep with your normal kind of rhythm. So there's a lot of stuff that can build up, and stuff like sleep deprivation, where if you have insufficient sleep, then the next time you are going to fall asleep, you fall asleep a lot quicker and you'll wake up more tired. It doesn't help to ever be sleep deprived. So then chapter 5, we're moving into sensation and perception. Most people have 5 senses. Some people have fewer. Some people have an extra sense that nobody understands. But sight, smell, taste, and touch and hearing are the 5 basic senses, but they also encompass balance, body positioning, how your body is positioned, movement, feeling pain, temperature detection, and pressure. So if you're under a lot of like if you're being smushed, you can feel that. It's not painful necessarily, but you can feel it. It's a part of touch, but it's also a little bit different. And then the detection of color when in our sight is something that a lot of people have very differently. So some people have monochromatic vision or like a red-green color blindness. And there's videos that you can watch that show what it looks like, especially for dogs. Dogs have dichromatic vision, so they can only see a couple of colors and everything kind of looks pretty green, brownish, and stuff blends together a lot for them. So that's normally why they won't recognize you until you get kind of close so they can see all the features in your face, because when you're far away, it just looks like one kind of color. And actually not 30%, I want to say 2/3 of people with color blindness are male. So it's logical to conclude that it's tied to the Y chromosome. I don't know if they've proved that. I don't actually understand why color blindness happens, just the shapes of the cones. But I might have to look into that. I'm not totally sure. And then moving on to chapter 6, learning. So reflexes are components of physical learning that's pretty much unconscious. So humans lose their natural reflexes at a young age, and instincts are somewhat unconscious. And are created by repeatedly doing something or being around something. Example, if you were a kid and you had dumb friends and they threw a lot of rocks at you, you got really good at ducking rocks or blocking or catching rocks that were thrown at you. I know I grew up with a younger brother, and you're always on edge because you never know what's going to happen. But now I'm very good at not getting hit in the face by things, even if I'm surprised. It's an instinct, not an instinct. Sorry, Yeah, instinct. It's instinctual to put my hands up whenever something like that happens. So cognitive maps also are used for many things, not just actual maps like you know where you're going in your town, but models. If you're thinking about, for example, so when we're all kids, we explore things with our mouths. So if you look at any kind of object, you can imagine what it would feel like like you know what this plastic feels like on your teeth or your phone or any random object, or you know what a candle, because when you were little you bit a candle. No matter how many times you say you didn't, you know exactly what that candle would feel like. And it's kind of interesting to think about that we still have kind of that memory of that stuff. And then moving on to the last chapter, I know I'm going on kind of long, I apologize. Is problem solving is a very important part of cognition. Trial and error is also very important. So when you're trying something and failing, it means you're learning. If you're trying something and you get it right at first time, every time, you're not learning anything new. You're just doing something that you already know how to do. And then once you find the correct way to do it, finding the best way to do it also involves trial and error. You're going to mess up doing it a way that you don't know how to do it. For example, I can solve these pretty consistently. But if I forget what step I'm on, like right now, I have no idea what is happening. I just have to look at it for a second, and then given enough time and given enough muscle memory, I can do it behind, like, I know exactly what it looks like and I know how to fix it. So that just comes with a lot of time and practice, and that's humans are the best at learning, and we've known that for a while. So, alrighty, I think that's my whole presentation. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.